No, Herschel, you've been talking to me throughout the week. We do have a kind of minor version of our show throughout the week, when we're talking back and forth. You seem a little angry to me this week, Herschel. I just got to ask, what's up? What's wrong with you?
All right. All right, I'm going to tell you what's wrong. Here's my problem, Antoine. We have become very pathological in our behavior as a people. We have allowed what this white supremacist society says about us to be the way that we live our, some of us, to live our lives. We don't trust one another. We talk down about one another. We won't help each other. Antoine, we don't demand the respect that we deserve. We'll moan and groan. You know,
I got a response. One thing I want to say, and I was going to say this to you earlier, but I decided to say it for now, Herschel. One thing I was going to say is that, and I think you'll agree with this, but colonization starts in the mind.
It does.
The first thing that your colonizer will do is to make your condition natural to yourself. Now, for us, when you're placed into a position of second-class citizenship, when you're placed in a position where you make less, where you're less likely to be hired, where your education matters less, where you have to be twice as good to get half as much, these are the burdens that are placed on us as Black people in a white supremacist state. And in order for us to accept these burdens and to not react appropriately to them, they have to seem natural to us. And that requires propaganda, it requires violence, it requires the threat of violence, it requires a situation where you have to know that in order to get by, you have to internalize your own supposed inferiority. And so one thing I do want to note is that this is not a new dynamic. One of the reasons why people like James Brown and Martin Luther King and the NAACP had to do a campaign of Black is Beautiful is because all the images that are projected outwards, all of the images of Black men as savages and Black women as ugly maids, all that is intended to make us think that we're less than, to make us think that we're uglier than, to make us think that we're stupider than, and most of that is intended to naturalize not just our inferior position, but also to naturalize the position of unjust inferiority that white people currently uphold and possess. And we have to note that when we are, there is a sociological concept. This is called internalized racism. When we do internalize the racist narratives, the racist premises that permeate our society, we end up in a position where as the common phrase says, when we think the white person's ice is colder, where we think that their $1 is better than a $1 from a Black person, where we think that their praise is better than the betrayal of our community. And again, this is not our fault. As I consistently say,
no, I'm not. Right.
Yeah, and I know you're not saying it's our fault,
right.
But this is not our fault. This is one of the things that you have to unlearn as a byproduct of being a functioning and aware and conscious Black person in the society that we live in. One of the first things you have to know is that everything that is written about you, everything that is said to you, everything that is projected about you on television and cinema is a lie. And it is an intentional lie. It is an intentional lie that is intended to not just justify your inferior position, but also to justify any oppression that's given your way. They have to tell you that you're a criminal in order to build prisons to lock you up. They have to tell you that you're a poor steward of your money in order to justify taking money out of your community, money that white people have long enjoyed. So one of the things that we see in our interactions, and this is just a microcosm of macro and historical dynamics. One thing that we see is that we see Black people being harsher on themselves. We see Black people being harsher to the Black people in their sphere. And one of the things that this does, and one of the precise roles that it has, is that it minimizes our capacity to actually work together and to work in unity against who our actual oppressors are.
Right. Thank you for that dissertation, Antoine, because I'm trying to get myself together.
Go for it. Do what you got to do, Herschel.
Because we're here because we love our community. We're here because we love our people. Now, when I hear, here's the problem, Antoine. We have people that will be the first Black person to be this and be that, and those are great milestones. But when you get there and you want to prove to white people that you can be impartial by by abusing your own. When you have to prove to white people that you are one of them by abusing and neglecting and talking down about your own,
Stephen A. Smith,
you got a problem. Here's my thing, Antoine. You know, we keep it real here. We're gonna keep it real. This is what you do. Again, when you talk about being a race traitor, I'm not talking about in the sense of a white supremacist.
Race traitor.
Listen to what I'm saying, Antoine. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. What you do with race traders is you put them out with the trash. You hear what I'm saying? You got to get rid of them.
No.
Because
what is a race trader? What is
a race trader? Is someone that will abuse their own. I'm not talking about trying to put someone down to make yourself feel good. I'm talking about someone that will, okay, I'll use it for instance. You become a police officer and you come into the community and you beat down the brother. You showing the white boys that you're just as tough on them animals in the group. You don't try to build up the community, you tear it down. You become the oppressor. You know, it's the same as like I said, in colonization and then slavery. The best way to help keep them down is to use one of their own. And when you become that, you gotta go. You feel me? So if that's what's running through your mind when I see you, Antoine,
but I think that's incompatible with the ideas that were expressed before. I said, and you agreed with me. I said that propaganda is fed to us 24/7 in every element of our life. You know, we can't if we're going through life unconsciously and uncritically, we are going to internalize white supremacist narratives about ourselves that will actually lead to something that can be called race traitor. So I think that we have to be careful simply because I think that there are gradients to the kind of treachery that should be actionable. And what I'm saying is this. A black person who has, let's say they, stereotypical black person, let's say they have beautiful big lips and a wide nose and wonderful natural hair or something like that. That person may think that they're ugly. That person may think that other black people who look like her or him are ugly. That person, I don't think that person is a race traitor. That person is a victim. That person is a victim of a society that tells them how to.
That's not what I'm talking about. It's a race. That's not what I said.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to make the distinction, though.
We have to change the narrative. And when you say propaganda, just like you said.
Yeah, I agree.
Propaganda. Again, what did we say at the beginning of the show? We come to what? Help change the narrative. Help uplift and enlighten. Now, you're talking about way down. That, to me, that's not a race.
Okay, I agree. Okay, I just want to make sure we make that distinction.
I made a very specific example.
Your example is good.
The example I made was very specific.
Your example is interesting, though. Your example is interesting.
You thinking that you're ugly is not traitor to
you thinking that black people are ugly.
Well, you do that because you're looking in your same mirror.
Exactly.
But when
you're internalizing the narratives that are brought to you.
But when you are trying to prove to the white supremacist group that you are one of them and you're not one of us, or that you can be just as useful of a tool to help keep them in place. Because you remove yourself. Once you remove yourself and think you're one of them and not one of us, you become a race traitor.
So what about people who remove themselves by class? What about people who remove themselves by education? What happens in a situation where you start assuming that black people are poor because they don't work hard enough or they don't work as hard as you? You start assuming that black people are uneducated because they don't talk like you do. Is that a form of race treachery?
It is a form, and again, what happens?
Is that as actionable in the same way? Should it be?
Well, no. Listen. Treason. Wait. Treason is punishable by death, right?
Treason against the nation. Yes.
Treason against the nation is.
Are we a nation?
Yes, we are.
Really?
We got a national anthem. No, wait. We got a national anthem and no nation. We'll talk about that too. But here's the thing. There are different things, you're right, there's action that has to be taken. Now, are the actions all the same? No, because the infractions are different. Now, if I can talk to you, Antoine, and help you see something else, because what's going to happen when you remove yourself because of class, sooner or later you'll find out. Because what's going to happen, you're going to get pulled over. You're gonna have your money taken.
Black cops get pulled over.
Black cops get shot.
Yeah.
So at some point,
I think my only issue, and now I do agree with you in this respect. I do think that being an officer should, which is to say, being a deliberate and intentional agent of a white supremacist state whose remit is the commission of violence against black community. That's what being a police officer is. When you belong to an institution whose function is ethnic population control, I do think that should be viewed as a different category. But I also think that one of the fixtures of colonization is that it collaborates to make you to place you in a position where you do not internalize or express or attempt to organize around what your interests are. And the nature of power and the nature of the way power has worked is that it seeks to remove not just your capacity for self-respect, but also your capacity for agency, so that you're never in a position where you can actually see the natural nature of your beauty or see how you are just as intelligent and capable as any other person in the society. These are things that are fed into you from birth. And I will also note that the idea that we are violent is another notion that is fed into us. And this is something that we do respond to. When we see people on the road and think that maybe the police should be called on them, when we see groups of young black men hanging together, many people's immediate, even many black people's immediate response is to be suspicious of that. So I think that one thing, the only reason I'm suspicious of the race traitor narrative is because I think that first off, not everybody is going to have the tools necessary to deprogram themselves. To use the example, we are in the matrix. If you are in the matrix, if you are plugged in, you are plugged into the natural narrative, the natural default of the society. You are not going to be in a position to understand or to cope with, or to analyze your condition. Even people who see themselves at a higher level, even people who know that racism exists, doesn't necessarily have a full assumption of what racism is. I can give you a simple example of this. Harvard University, they recently released a study, if I'm not mistaken, it was a few days ago, but I only encountered it yesterday. The study showed that if there's a police shooting in a black neighborhood, that affects the birth rate of black children. That affects the birth weight of black children. And they documented it and showed that it had effects on not only how big they were, how big they grew up, had effects on their educational attainment, had effects on their state of mind. That the psychic reaction of a shooting in a black neighborhood ended up, and it was not like that for any other race of people. It was not like that for Hispanics. It was not like that for white people. It wasn't even like that for Hispanics and white people who had Hispanics and white people shot in their neighborhoods. It was only like that for us. That's an example of the depth of white supremacy, and a lot of people do not understand that depth and do not have the capacity to respond to it. And I think that the only problem that I have with race traitors is that our natural condition inside of the state is one where we are made to be unaware of the way the state collaborates to oppress us. So I think that in the absence of groups that can deprogram people, in the absence of institutions that can be stable fixtures. And we should also always note that our institutions are consistently under assault by the government. Our means of educational attainment are consistently frowned on and under assault. But the consequence of this is that we're going to have people who will collaborate in their own oppression. Now, I think that we can distinguish between people who do this for opportunistic reasons and people who do this for quote-unquote more natural reasons. But I also think that it's difficult to understate the degree to which we are forced to be collaborators in that oppression.
Well, let me ask you this, Antoine.
Shoot.
Do you feel that we are at war?
Herschel.
Wait, you asked me that.
We are on
radio. You're absolutely right.
Okay. Even if I did concede that we were at war, where's the army? Where's our army?
That's not what I asked. That's not what I asked you. Again, don't go so deep. Are we at war?
Herschel, that's an interesting question. It's a difficult question to answer on the air. I'm not going to answer that question on the air, but I actually will implore you to continue with that line of questioning. Let me just deflect to my listeners. We're currently black people make up the most incarcerated population in the country. We make up the most segregated segment of the country. It is militarily armed police that places us in that position. It is a white supremacist state that gives the laws, that give the police the agency to put us in that condition. Now, I'm not going to say that we're at war, but I do think that intelligent listeners can draw their own conclusions about what is taking place in our society, what the implications are for that place in our society.
Well, the reason for that question.
And I'm saying this on the same week that the police killed the 21-year-old Fred Hampton. This is the anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. This is the anniversary of his assassination by the Chicago Police Department. So, you know, just as you think about the question, are we at war? I can't say for sure what other black people are doing, but I can say for sure that at the very least, our oppressors think that that we're enemies.
Okay, so and the only reason I asked that, Antoine, was for this reason. When you're at war, you have a different mindset than you do when you're at peace. That's all I'm saying. So you have to use different tactics, educationally, tactically. Yeah. Listen, I understand what you're saying. I'm telling you why I asked the question. Now, with that being said, the reason that you have to deal with certain things, certain infractions differently is for that very reason.
Okay, but part of colonization is obscuring that simple binary, the idea of being at war versus being at peace. The colonization tells us that we are American citizens, that our requirement is to assimilate and integrate, and that our highest goal, even within resistance movements, that our highest goal should be to hold hands with a black person or a white person, to understand that we work together, and to love, and you know, as the Bible says, love our enemies. You know, that is the remit that is placed on us in society. So part of being programmed into the state is actually being blind to an antagonism that's recurring. So, you know, I understand what you mean by asking if we're at war, but part of most black people not being programmed correctly is the idea that we're not, that this is just normal, that this is just society, that we are facing the same strains, maybe just a little bit magnified because of discrimination, but that we're just facing the same stress that other groups are facing. So what do you do with that? You can't say, you know, what do you do with that, Herschel?
Well, that's my point. Now, we're of a different mindset, and we got a bunch of people. We have a bunch of people watching and listening as well.
Certainly.
That have a little bit different mindset. So again, no. I'm gonna use your words. What you do is you organize.
That's right.
You strategize.
That's right.
You help to re-educate. Now again, you're not gonna get everybody. So those that you can't get, like I said, if once I bring you the knowledge of self, Antoine, once you realize who and what you are, and you have a different mindset, and you realize that your wide nose and your big lips are beautiful. Once you realize that your natural hair is beautiful, you have a different way of carrying yourself. You have a different way of educating your children. You have a different way of interacting with other people that look like you. And that's what we're here to do. This is what we all have to do. And this is my point. Now, can you wake everybody up? Did everybody in the Matrix wake up? Not necessarily. The idea is to wake up enough and get this ball rolling. Hopefully, the hope is to get everyone. Now, the reality is that you won't.
But I would actually go a little bit deeper than that. When you said that the proper response is organizing, this is correct. But I would also say that education has to be a collective effort. I think that the part of the problem is that we have made the responsibility for a proper anti-racist education the purview of either an individual or another interested individual contacting you.
Or the oppressor.
I mean, that's part of it. But you know, we've individualized the necessities of education, and because of that, we are not only separate from what actual resistance can look like, we also end up being separate from any kind of communal responsibility. So, unfortunately, when we talk about education, we usually mean it to say, educate yourself, Google Malcolm X, seriously.
Right.
And I think that there is an inadequacy to that Black people need to grapple with more. We require, again, I'm not calling anyone out, but we do require churches to actually get involved with this. We require Black institutions and Black organizations to step up and say, our responsibility is to teach people what racism is, to teach people what white supremacy is, to normalize the idea of Black people talking Black power and the Black people talking proudly. I think that the problem is that because we've individualized it, it's limited the amount of people who have access to that kind of education, Herschel. And unfortunately, I think that what we see is a consequence of this.
Well, again, it's the duty of those that coming to understanding. Again, you can't.
That's still individualistic, though. I think that we need organizations.
Yeah, but again,
we require organizations.
Listen to what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So those that are in the know get with more that are in the know and form group. Again,
I agree.
Again, that's my point.
I agree.
We have to collectivize. We have to, because either we're gonna unite and free ourselves and unite and lift ourselves up, or we're gonna die separately. We're gonna die shot in the streets, the conscious and the unconscious. Mm-hmm. So we have to. It is everyone's duty. It's everyone's duty, Antoine. If you come into a better knowledge of self, if you come into a better knowledge of truth, it's your duty to pass that on. It's your duty to try to get that information to as many people as possible. You know, and again, I don't want to minimize the ability of one person, right, but I don't want to overstate it either. Now, one person can only do so much, but what you have to do is seek out people of a like mind. You have to seek out people that want to uplift our community. You have to seek out people that want to make changes. You have to seek out people of the same type of energy, and you come together as a group and you come up with a strategy. And then what happens is you seek out other groups that are at the same type of goals in mind. Exactly. So again, it starts with you. Once you come into knowledge that there's something different, you have to start to seek out, other people like yourself.
In some cases, it does start with you, but I think that we need to again note that that is a very suboptimal place to start. I think that people who, it can start with you, but it's better if it starts with it's better if it starts with your parents. It's better if it's passed down to you. It's better if you come up in a place, come up in either a pro-black church or
you are the parent, Antoine.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. But I think that again, in a situation where we are organized correctly, there should not be any kind of individual road to Damascus moments where we just end up having an epiphany. I think that the desirable point is for the kind of stuff that we're talking about to be transmuted through osmosis, for them to have such a volume of pro-black material that they will resort to it and come to it and be exposed to it well before they start having independent thoughts. That is the ideal and that is the goal, and that's what should be built for. I understand what you mean by knowledge of self. I understand by what you mean by saying that you have to do the work. But I think that unfortunately it is dangerous to outsource that work to individual people. I think that I know you're not doing that.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. So if the parents come to knowledge of self, of course they're supposed to pass it on to the children.
Knowledge of self is knowledge of the community.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Once you realize that you're not ugly, once you realize that you're not a criminal, once you realize that your black skin does not make you less than, that's knowledge of self. Because the narrative is your black skin is ugly, your big nose is ugly, your hair is ugly, you're lazy, you can't learn. Once you come to the knowledge and realization that you are not those things and you are the opposite, then it becomes your duty to pass that on, to help bring that to the community. Because again, there are more people out there like you that may think the same thing as you. So what you do is once you realize that, hey, we're not criminals because we're black, you say to me, hey, listen, this, that. Let's get some books, let's get together, let's do this, let's teach our children, let's take it to the church, let's take it to our organization. That's what I'm saying. I'm not, see, you're taking it on the individual. When I say knowledge of self, you can't move me if you don't know where you want to move. You can't move me to where you are unless you know where you are. When I say knowledge of self, and that's knowing who you are, knowing that you are not the stereotype, knowing that you are not the propaganda that's being put out there, knowing that just because you went to jail does not make you a damn criminal. And we have a habit of doing that. Just because somebody went to jail, somebody's a criminal. We just had 2 young men get released after 36 years. 2 young men. 3. It was 3. I'm sorry, it was 3. Released after 36 years for a crime that they didn't commit. The evidence was there during the trial, but a lot of us were feeding to the propaganda and say they probably did it, Antoine. And we have to stop that. We have to stop that. Again, I'm not saying that everybody, again, you said it before and I'll repeat it. Crime is subjective.
Crime is arbitrary. Crime is a created property. Yeah, it is a creative
You know?
property. It is not a
We
moral
have to stop
determiner.
that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that just as context for where I'm coming from, I think that the problem is that in American society, and particularly in white society, there is an overemphasis on the self. There's an overemphasis on the individual, and I think that as a historical matter, as a matter of where we come from, as a matter of what we've been through, and as a matter of what it takes to actually survive in the state where we only make up about 14% of the population. I think that it is dangerous for us to think in individualistic terms. I'm not saying that you're doing that, but I want to be extra careful about that because I think that we need to get in the habit of thinking of we. We need to get in the habit of thinking of us. We need to get in the habit of thinking in a way that makes the individual definable, not just as an individual, but as part of the whole. And I think that one of the best ways to do that is to de-emphasize the individual as much as possible. I think that part of the problem and part of the way that white supremacy can isolate us is by making the individuals prominent. We can go, I made it. We can go, I'm educated. And you very well may be, but that means absolutely nothing if you're in a context where your community is left behind and your community is poor and your community is uneducated. So I think that part of the quality of this is that it reinforces the idea that we must lock hands, that our fate, that your fate is my fate, and my fate is your fate. Right. Exactly. And that if I'm doing all right and you're doing poorly, I'm not doing all right.
That's right. Say that again.
No.
Say it again.
If I'm doing all right and you're doing poorly, then I'm not all right. I think that this is how we need to understand our relationship to one another. And I think that I'm just gonna say it. I think that both white supremacist American society and capitalism encourages us to view things in isolation. That's part of why they got rid of unions. They got rid of unions because it was possible for you to go up to a worker and see that you were being paid less. It was possible for you to see that your manager was abusing people. And part of the strategy of management is to isolate workers. They do black people the same way. They want us isolated in communities and areas where we are on our own and we are perceived to be on our own, but we get strength when we come together. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to internalize first.
See, I don't have a problem with. See, the thing is, we'll go back to that analogy with crabs in the bucket. The difference is you can get out of that bucket, but you better reach back. Because everybody talks about the crabs in the bucket syndrome, but nobody ever asked how the crabs got in the bucket in the first place. So this bucket that we're in, these United States of America, this bucket that we're in, that we've been lied to and reneged on, with the promissory note of freedom, justice, and liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
In quotation marks.
All this stuff that's been promised to us, that's been reneged upon. We have to realize that this is a bucket that we're in, or a barrel, or whatever you want to call it. And because some of us achieve the so-called American dream, means absolutely nothing if you are by yourself. Like you said, you're isolated. And this is what white supremacists promotes. You're a good Negro. You're a credit to your race, Antoine.
You're articulate.
You speak so well. But what happens is you speak so well and you're by yourself. You have no strength.
You're speaking the language of your oppressor.
Yeah, right. So what happens is, as you prosper, as you climb that wall and that fence, remember to reach back for your sisters and your brothers. Because if you make it over alone, that's exactly what you're going to be. Alone.
That's right.
Alone.
That's right.
Don't bring your monkey behind back to me talking about, I got pulled over. They kicked in my door. I don't know what to do. Take your ass back to that wall that you climbed by yourself. And you said you made it. And stay over there with your folks.